See, there's some of them countries where they put frogs in the milk and it keeps it from turning.
Oh, that's gross.
Ew.
It's like, there's an enzyme on their skin
Oh.
on certain frogs in certain countries, and if you put it in the milk, it won't turn.
Ooh. Ooh.
Some countries don't pasteurize their milk either. They put it on the store shelf without refrigeration.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, we used to not pasture ours at one time.
All right. Call the meeting to order. It's just us tonight. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. We kind of started that tradition, so. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so next thing on our agenda is to do a roll call, and I just took note of everybody that's here. So we have Cassie, Jody, Matt, Lonnie, Linda, and then myself as secretary. Absent is Bill and Adam. So on the agenda for tonight, because this is a special meeting, I did put discussion on reorganizing the board. Because it's not a regular meeting and we're missing some members. We could probably wait until our regular monthly meeting on the 27th, if that works for everybody. If that's acceptable, then it allows the other members a say. So, and being that we're not reorganized, I will just run the discussion tonight if that works for everybody also. So, next on the agenda is ordinance committee's discussion. So we currently have moratoriums on solar facilities and data and cryptocurrency facilities. I did speak with Patrick, the state's attorney, and I spoke with Natalie Pierce in Morton County and a few others about how these committees typically form with planning and zoning, and because it's a pretty big deal. Usually they do some planning and zoning members, at least one or two county commissioners, a member of the public, and a member of that industry if they want to be involved for these discussions. Obviously, this is just a committee that is working on the ordinance. They discuss it. It goes to the full planning and zoning board for discussion, deliberation, voting, changes, whatever it needs to be, and then gets recommended on to the county commissioners as a do pass or do not pass. We had Lad Erickson at our meeting in February. He did discuss that the Cole County state's attorneys, along with the Cole Conversion County organization, were discussing possibly implementing like an industrial zoning area in these counties. So cities have industrial zones, commercial zones, residential. Counties typically just have like ag, residential, and commercial. We permit conditional use permits for industrial use purposes, but we don't actually have industrial zones. But within Century Code, he said we are allowed as a county to do that. So what they're going to do is go back to these industries and say, can you look at a map and tell us what you think would look good for an industrial zone within each county? And then they bring that back to the state's attorneys and the county commissions, who then decide if this is a proper use of that land. County commission can say, no, doesn't make sense here, what about over here? But it would help the planning and zoning board and the county commission to then permit these projects a little bit better, because we have a specific area within the county that fits projects like that, versus let's take some ag land and say, yep, we're going to change it over to industrial conditionally or permanently. Now we're saying we have like a section of land that's better for industrial use than anything else. And then we can say, you go here, and we work on that. Just kind of one of those, it's in the works right now, but I thought you guys should be aware of that.
Does that affect all of the stuff like wind towers? They're everywhere.
Well, it probably wouldn't affect wind towers as much as other types of projects, especially like data and cryptocurrency.
That's what I was thinking, because that's a physical plant that doesn't
Right.
rely on natural resources close
Right.
by.
Yep. So that it would be more effective with that type of a thing, like a power plant. You know, if we somehow got some sort of factory here of some kind, you know, whether it's
So how's the power plant zoned now?
that is currently zoned industrial. That is our only actual industrial zone in the county. And that was changed over back in the 70s when they first brought Minn Kota here. But that's the only actual industrial area, and it's only the land that they own. So it's not actually anything around it because there's farms and homes pretty much right around most of it.
The
So
next question, I guess, would be, when it comes to the land and there's no industrial land right now,
Mhm.
you're gonna have to get somebody to want to switch their agriculture
Right.
to it.
Right.
So, I mean, when you're closer to the power plant, it's gonna offer more benefits to a data center,
Yep.
cryptocurrency, things like that. So is there gonna be a situation to where the people that are close to it are gonna benefit more from it than other people?
You know, that's a good question. And like Lad was saying, this is all kind of in the tentative works. They're just trying to come up with a better way for our planning and zoning, especially when we're hearing all these projects. We have something to tell them, like, hey, this is zoned industrial, but they don't have any of the specifics figured out just yet. But Oliver County is a little bit more unique because we do have so many landowners that are like right around that area.
Right.
So like BNI, you know, they're mining and they keep moving like southwest right now. So they're leasing the land a lot of the time, or they're buying people's homes out so they can mine that. But then it goes back to agricultural eventually.
Right.
But like a power plant or a data center, not necessarily going to go back to agricultural. So I don't know. We're in a unique situation here. And it's a unique situation for most counties because they don't have industrial zoning necessarily. Cities do, but not in a county because.
Well, and that's, you know, like he said, the resources that are going to be close by.
Mhm.
So they need the wind, so they want to be out where the wind is predominant at. You're going to get a data center. First biggest thing they're going to want is
the power
water
from a
for
power
cooling
plant and water. Mhm.
and the power plant.
Mhm.
So they're going to want to have left infrastructure in
Yes.
between the power plant and that data center.
Yep.
So they're going to try to get as close as possible.
Yep.
So I guess the next question would be is, once the rules from another county come and how they looked at it, you know, and then, I don't know, I guess, I don't know how much of this type of stuff's open to the public to say, hey, we're getting ready to talk about having an industrial zone.
Yeah, they will do public hearings before they kind of make that decision because obviously it will affect the landowners in that general area
Right.
first and foremost. You know, Minn Kota doesn't own that entire area; they just own the, you know, around the lake pretty much and where the power plant is.
Well, then
so,
I guess they're kind of noisy too because they put the data centers up in Williston and they ended up trying to shut themselves down after they let them build it. So it's like they didn't realize what they were bringing.
Yeah,
You know?
that
So
is that I've heard. They're very noisy and they are also very hot.
and it's like it's not just a, you know, like a jackhammer running or
No, it's
hearing a drag line
it's
go.
pretty
It's a
loud.
constant.
But they're usually out in the middle of nowhere. But like if out of Dakota, what's the difference in the other noise out there?
I can say like I can hear Minn Kota from my house at night. It's just a steady hum.
You're right.
You can hear it. If they would throw a data center out there by Minn Kota, people living in that area probably wouldn't notice it so much as putting it out in the middle of the countryside where there's a farm down the road, depending on the way the wind blows or if it's down in a coulee or you know whatever. They might not notice it, or they might notice it more because they don't have.
Where's the one
something
going
like that.
that's going up in McLean County?
I think Lad said that one they're working on is actually located on like mine or power plant property, so it's actually not going to affect somebody's residential or agricultural land. I'm not 100% sure exactly where, but he made a good point. It would make more sense for things like that to go next to an already established industrial area or you know, like a power plant. Because there's already stuff there. I mean, it's already noisy. It's not disturbing as much, but we still have to have some sort of rules, regulations that we're allowed to have to say, like, yep, you go here, make sure you do this, this, and this. Don't make too many
So
people
I guess the
mad.
objective of this is to incentivize these industries to try to come here? Is that the goal of this?
In a
Or is it to
way,
prepare if they do want to come?
a little
for the
bit of
power
a
plant?
little bit of both, I think. You know, it's we want to be prepared so we're not running into issues of not having anything in place and we don't know how to handle them.
Does the state have, I mean, can they just, if we make rules, can they just say too bad?
As of right now, not for data centers, no.
But I don't think you can make specific rules for just a certain thing. It's gotta cover all
Right.
Yeah.
things.
Everything.
Yeah, I mean,
It
like
can't be
we
for a
have
specific data center.
in the ordinances, you know, we have specifically like setbacks for wind turbines because the state allows us to do so much. I mean, obviously there's things we can't do, but wind turbines are a little bit different. I don't know if they're gonna change century code and administrative code for data centers yet because obviously it's a really new type of industry and technology. There are counties that are working on ordinances, so as the committees work on these, it's good to maybe check what other counties have done or are working on so we can kind of see where they're at. And that's kind of why forming a committee with these different types of people, whether, you know, planning and zoning commissioners, member of that industry and the public, just to be kind of like, well, we didn't think about this. Or, hey, like, this is what our type of facility needs. How can we work that in? Most industries coming in, I would think, would want to work with the county and the people there versus, well, we're just coming in, I don't really care what you say. I mean, most. You would hope at the very least. I mean, you want to have a better working relationship with them than anything, but we still need to make sure that the county's
How
butts
do
are
you
covered.
find, industry, for solar and data that would want to be on some kind of a committee?
Well, you know, we put out advertisements for it as best as we can, and if we know that there are people here that have been approached by other types of those industries, we just ask them, do you have a contact? Would they be interested in coming in and at least having a voice on these committees? Because you don't want to shut them out either. You don't want to say, no, we don't want you involved. But
I was actually thinking we should lift moratoriums. Just allow for the free
Well-
market.
We can't lift them as planning and zoning because we just recommended to the
Yeah.
commissioners.
But we could make a motion and lift them and then it still goes back to the commissioners.
Yeah. I think we want to be real careful with these data centers. And
I had heard they make everybody's electric bill higher.
I
That is
watched,
changing. That is
it's
changing.
supposed to be
It's
changing
fast.
right now, like as it is, depending on how they get into the system.
They're gonna create their own electricity.
They're supposed to be figuring that out because it did. I believe the ones out east were causing a lot of massive rate increases for the people living there because the data centers were taking so much power, and there was no regulation on that, and so the electric companies were just saying, well, we're just going to increase rates for all of you to make up for the power usage.
That's
So-
changing. A lot of things have changed with them last 4 or 5 months.
I thought that after we did the studies, the moratoriums, then we'd make a decision to lift them. I don't know how long these studies are gonna take. That's what
Well,
my,
the general idea of these committees is that we actually work on ordinances that we can put into place. So that way, once those are done, we can lift those moratoriums. Lifting them before we have
They were
anything
just
in
to give
place.
us time to get something.
Yeah, it's
Some
a way to
research
give
on
us
that.
time, a way for the county to give us time to put some rules in place. I mean, obviously we need to make sure that we legally can do some of the things so we're not running into issues
Going
with,
against the state.
yeah, we need to make sure that, but,
Commissioners asked us to do that.
yeah. Yeah,
Asked you to do what?
the commissioners asked us to put these moratoriums in place.
How many people here have been contacted for solar lease?
Not me.
I have.
It's
The
too
two different
hilly
co-
out in my area.
I know there's a few people in the county that have been
I
approached.
think Bill was.
I think he was
I
too.
think you
Bill
mentioned
asked,
that.
Bill said he would be interested in being on the solar.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, right now, we kind of know what we are thinking of doing. I guess based on everybody who is here, who would like to be a part of the solar committee and who would like to be a part of the data committee, because at this point, that's kind of our plan, I think, is to just continue with these committees. And then I can take those names to the commissioners next week so that they can decide who's on these committees, because that's kind of how they'll.
Well, the
The
commissioners will decide.
commissioners will be the ones that are deciding, based on the conversation I had with Patrick. He said that is the best way to do this, is have the commissioners. That's why I want to know
They're
who
gonna pick
wants
someone from the community too, the commissioners are.
whoever approaches them. I mean, they can't just
Do we
say,
have to
Joe Schmo off
advertise
the
for that?
street, you're on the committee.
Do we have to advertise?
Probably, but that's kind of where
Well,
they need to have
some
that
people that
discussion.
don't-
How many members from planning and zoning, do they want us all on it or just one or
Just
two?
probably two,
Two on
maybe
each.
three. I mean, we don't want to have a quorum because then that would be considered like a full,
Yeah, not more than three.
full
so that would be a
meeting.
quorum.
But, and just like the commissioners, we can't have two commissioners on these committees because that's considered a quorum. And then we have the open meetings and just small groups to work on these just to get something at least started.
I would be on either one.
Okay.
Be honest. I don't.
I know Bill
like I
was
said before, I don't
interested in
have any
solar.
skin in the game when it comes to that. So
Mm-hmm.
Can I sit out, say, because we're gonna be extremely busy the next 2 months, can
Yeah.
say I just assume just be on planning and zoning and not a committee?
That's
Unless-
perfectly acceptable too.
Unless something happens where you need someone.
No, you should not feel obligated to be on a committee. It's just if you're interested in either of these topics and kind of want to just at least discuss and brainstorm what we could put into an ordinance, then do it. If you because that would mean extra meetings here and there.
I'm interested, but I'm a little overwhelmed with everything in the
Oh, yeah.
courthouse and
Yeah.
with the weed board
That's fine.
mess. And
And obviously
my
this
fingers in too many pies for right
these all come back to the planning and zoning as a whole. So you will all eventually have a say on it. This is just to get like basically a rough draft started to bring to the board to then completely go through and then do a recommendation to the county commissioners for approval or denial. I mean, we were asked, especially on the solar, but then data and cryptocurrency came into discussion as well, that they want something. Because especially with solar, there's a few different things at play, and there's something about an ag exemption that could possibly cause some issues as far as potential revenue for the county as well as regulations.
From the little bit of research I've done, I don't think we can regulate anything over 5 megawatts.
Under 5 megawatts, right?
We can't, anything over,
Above.
we can't.
Then the state does it.
Then
Right.
It's the state.
But there's something about like there's something with ag exemption that we had mentioned that we need, that's why putting a moratorium in place to make sure that we're not overstepping, but also not
Like
cutting ourselves short.
I don't think we wanna regulate, homeowners from putting solar.
No,
But
this is like
this egg, but I've been reading how this one farm powers their hog farm
Mhm,
with solar.
mhm.
That could be what Lee was thinking about.
It's something with the actual, like an actual industrial project of solar,
like the wind farm.
and it goes on to
except
ag
for
land,
acreage of-
but
acres of
there's
solar
something
panels.
that it becomes, there's like an ag exemption, and like I said, this is definitely something we need to look into.
Basically, they don't pay taxes.
Right.
No.
So
And
your
we
solar-
lose out
I
on
think
that.
they should have to
They
pay.
should have to pay taxes,
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, Thomas Weaver's got 1,000 acres leased out to a solar company.
But they can't build
They
till they
can't
come.
build until they come here. They can't do
Right,
anything
but
until
he
they come
has
here, but
an option or whatever, you know, they.
there's a few people
and
that
his
I think
sister
have been
moves her
approached.
stuff out too.
But that's kind of why this was brought up. Like, let's do the moratoriums, let's get something in place.
You know from some of the stuff I've read that large solar farms create their own weather. Because there's
They put off heat.
a lot of heat,
Oh, yeah.
and they scorch and they kind of destroy the ground underneath, but they create their own weather pattern. I watched a video of a giant solar farm in Colorado created its own weather and healed itself out.
Well, I always often wondered about that.
Yeah, the whole thing was smashed. Well, it was acres and acres and acres just smashed with hailstones.
I feel like it's one thing if you put it on like a roof or that type of thing, but when you take those panels and you just put it over a ton of agricultural land that could be extremely productive for somebody, I feel like that's just a
No, this
I
is my
personally don't want to see
opinion,
that
it's just a
either.
waste of
This
land.
isn't anything to do with like homeowners or buildings.
No, this is purely
just-
for an
Industrial
industrial
storage
purpose.
field.
Yep. This is like a company coming in just for, like a, now I'm losing the word, like what the wind towers do. Generation, there we go. Electric generation, that type of facility. It's not for a homeowner who wants to put a couple panels on their roof to power their home, their barn, whatever. That's not.
Well, that's one thing the subcommittee will look into, then the weather aspect of it. Now, I assume they'd get some reports on that.
I'm
I
sure.
hope so.
Yep.
Now,
NASA's done some good research on
So
I can't hear you.
that. NASA's done some really good research on that. I was reading one research paper from that.
Bill was interested in being on the solar committee. Is there anybody else that wants to be on solar?
NASA could be on.
I'd be on every
On
one of them.
either? Okay. Okay. I mean, I can just basically say that we have those three names for sure interested, and they can kind of choose how they want to put you guys on there. And then whoever we maybe get from the city, maybe they'd be interested. I guess I don't really
You know
know.
when they're.
Who's the data? Cassie wants to do data? I couldn't
Cassie
hear
said
her.
either.
Oh,
Cassie said either.
I can't hear it.
Did he know when they would pick it?
I don't.
So what is it? When their meeting is probably next week. Or they have their meeting?
No, they have their meeting on Monday. Monday.
Oh, so then it'll probably not be.
Unless they have a special meeting, but I don't. That I don't know. I just told them to let me know when
Well,
they
what
have.
did they do for, he was a board member elected.
Yeah.
So they
They have
just
to appoint
appoint somebody.
So, anyways, okay, so Cassie and Matt. Either one. Lonnie, you said no right now.
I'd rather not if
That's
someone
fine.
else would do it.
Okay, that's fine. Linda's not
I'm
right
just
now.
a
That's
little
fine.
overwhelmed
Jody's
right
on.
now.
Probably not, because I kind of think we should lift the moratorium.
Yeah, I guess we don't have to agree on everything.
No.
I just think we should do a study first. I'm scared of data centers right now.
It's at least worth looking into what we can and can't do. And if it comes down to it where the state says basically like some of this like pipelines and transmission lines where they just basically get the authority, then we just say, well, they have the authority, this is where we're at. I mean, but it's at least worth looking into what we can do, because I know there's a few things out there, and data centers are obviously really
But
new,
it's good.
but things continue to change.
Learning about things is never bad.
No, absolutely not. Yep. So, and I'll just be at each of whatever meetings we have for these to take the notes and whatever, so.
Are other counties putting moratoriums on these things?
I just know Morton, that was it.
Martin is, I think Bowman County did. There's a few, because the planning and zoning director's email, they said like we put moratoriums on, or they're at least having ordinance committee discussions, so I'd have to look for sure. I I feel like Mercer County had a moratorium on something, but I'm not sure what it was. McLean County didn't have anything, but they're also looking at this industrial zoning and ordinances. Like Lad said, he's like, I don't care if they put it up on power plant property or right beside it. It's one thing to do that, it's another to put it by somebody's house or a city or, he said they're actually big fire starters because the power within them and all the heat, their technology is getting better, but because of the type of,
This won't hurt or.
well, and the fires in those are hard to put out because it's like a battery fire. And basically fire departments that have had to do that, they just let it burn because they can't get it put out.
Keep it from
Well,
spreading.
in enough
Yeah.
data centers, they do have like giant, what they call an uninterruptible power supply.
Yeah.
And it's a battery backup on an industrial scale, like for a car.
Right.
So if there's ever a power outage,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that jolt over
Yeah.
against all of that equipment in there.
Yeah.
And if those do catch fire, then it's like multiple electric cars being on fire.
Getting back to what Jody said, I like to think about what everybody said. I don't think at this point, and correct me, I want you guys to correct me if I'm wrong, the county wouldn't be losing out on any business by having a moratorium because chances are, by the time one comes, we'll have an ordinance in place.
It's possible.
Nobody's approached us for it.
Nobody's really come in for
Nobody
for an
will if we
approach,
have a
but,
moratorium.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, like, they'll probably ask, if somebody wants to come in, if a company of either of these types wants to come in, they'll probably come in and ask, like, where are you at on the status of this moratorium? And we can either say, I don't know, or we're working on an ordinance, or the commissioners, they plan to lift it soon. I mean, obviously, it's definitely a final decision up to the commissioners, but
Well, and I would think if the power plant's here and this is an ideal spot for it, having the moratorium on it, I get that if they just look in the paper and they see that there's a moratorium on it in Oliver County, but they've never actually came and talked, they would find out the reason it's there is because the county's working on a plan
yeah,
to develop for them to come here.
Yep.
So, I mean, then they would, maybe then that's where you find out, hey, they'll be in a committee and be a part of it versus just lifting it and kind of making it an open free market and then it affects anybody and everybody just because it's,
yeah.
the free market.
And it's not bad to have revenue sources in the county. I mean, bringing in tax dollars and that type of thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just you also want to make sure that you're allowing that in.
But they're
The right-
actually
I
going to
mean-
have to pay taxes.
Well, that too, and making sure that they're taking care of the county too. I mean, beating up our roads,
Well, the data centers, they
Causing
don't really
issues.
generate a revenue. Like,
No.
They don't have anything they sell from here to outside the county, like power generation or the coal leak
Right.
types of things.
I mean, property tax would probably be the only thing that they would have to pay unless they would get an exemption through Century Code, like some other industries have gotten. I mean,
It'd be nice to know
How
how
high
they
is
plan
that?
on powering themselves.
yeah.
so they do a service for someone, but they don't produce anything.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so they
Data
It
consume.
depends on the type of data center.
Aren't they
If it's a
basically
data center
crypto
for
mining?
like cloud type of servers for saving everybody's pictures, that's one thing. They're selling subscriptions and like Google owns data centers all over the place.
Mhm.
Facebook has data centers all over the place. They lease space on them to other corporations so that they have the massive server capability. And then you've got the bit mining ones that just sit there and suck power. And they basically pull little bitty chunks of kilobytes of digital money that's floating around on the internet and it collects on a program and it's making somebody money. But it's a digital money itself. So it's not going to generate revenue because it's not a material thing that they're able to sell.
And I think we don't, just to back Jody up a little bit here, I don't think we want to look unattractive to industry as a county. But I'm not saying the moratoriums are wrong, but we just wanna make sure we don't look unattractive.
Oh, right, exactly.
And we do right now. I've heard that from the industry,
Who's in the industry, I guess.
lobbyists.
Guess it depends on who you talk to. I mean, industry, of course, it's
Well,
gonna look
lobbyists
really,
are-
Minn-Kota lobbyists.
yeah, it's gonna look
Lobbyists don't always have the
unattractive.
public's best interest in mind either.
Yeah,
They're
and then,
usually generated by revenue,
Well, they are supporting Minn-Kota, so.
but still, no, they're usually.
We don't wanna be like Shark Tank. There's something coming up. The guy gets up there and he said, all right, there's 3 states we will never build a factory in. California, Maine, and Massachusetts. He said the regulations are so bad, we just won't even consider it there. We don't wanna get, and I don't think we're there yet, but we don't want to.
Well, if it comes to a solar farm or a data center, I don't really think there's a lot of regulation besides the noise and the safety around it. I mean, it's not like a coal type of industry where they're ripping the ground open and extracting minerals and then putting the ground back on top of it. It's not that, destructive. I mean, I would think that it'd be pretty easy for these types of industries to make an attractive ordinance, that obviously protects the community and then utilizes the attractiveness of having the wind farms here and having the power plant. I mean, that's the draw to them.
okay,
If they need a water source, they would, obviously have to look at the map and see where there is available water.
yeah,
Not end up like we had the problem with the wind towers this summer where they were sucking the creeks dry.
I mean, I think when you're looking at water sources, you have Nelson Lake, which Minn-Kota owns, basically, and then you have the river, and that's kind of it. So their options are limited in a sense. Yeah, you can truck water in, but wouldn't it be easier if you could pull it from a water source instead? But then when you talk about the river, you're talking about state regs for water. I mean, you're talking about regulations on water everywhere, but
Where does the Coyote power plant get its water? I've always wondered
I
that.
guess I'm not sure.
I always wondered, we know why they built Minn-Kota there, Lake Nelson. We know why they built Leo's and UPA by the river. Antelope Valley, I worked on the water pipeline from the lake. I don't know why they chose that site there, but to put those 2 units. But I always wondered, where does Coyote get their water?
They got a pond out back or something? Come out in Beulah?
Yeah.
I guess I've never been up in their plant.
I guess they're not too terribly far from the lake.
I would
Oh,
imagine
that's
that regulations from the Corps of Engineers would be pretty tough to get. I mean, even just irrigating out of the river is a paper mess.
Yeah. So, on that, I think we had a decent discussion. Is there anything else that we need to discuss other than Bill and Cassie and Matt have said that they would be interested in serving on these committees?
Do you think there's going to be enough people, that there'll be people from the community that volunteer to be on these committees?
If we get the word out enough, I don't see why not. I'm sure there's enough people. If you talk to people that you know and say, hey, would you be interested, send them to the meeting on Thursday, or at least send a message to my office or
We can
one of
put
the
something
commissioners
on
or
county Facebook, and
Yep.
we've got our website. We can put a news blast in the middle. It's where we do our notices.
I feel like there's more people than there used to be that are wanting to be interested in this kind of stuff, that want to participate and be active.
There's a lot of new people
stuff.
in town.
A lot of stuff happens behind people's backs, and then a lot more people are starting to realize.
Yeah.
I mean, my first interaction with the Project Tundra is kind of one of the big things that even got me here today. I mean, that's pretty much right there next door to me almost. And, I get it, it's miles and miles away. But they didn't approach it very professional and respectful when I reached out for information. So
Just, yeah, I think there's more people that would probably be willing. We need to get the word out there. So if you talk to people that would be interested, definitely send them, at least have them call either my office or one of the commissioners just to say, hey, I'd be interested in serving on this committee, because they can bring those names to the meeting. And
Well, and it's just it's a short-term thing, so they only got to
Right.
be part of the committee until the actual decisions are
Yep.
made and the ordinance comes together,
Yep.
and then it's going to dissolve. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like
it's not like
they
it's
have
a
to obligate themselves for the whole year.
correct. Yep. I mean, the intent is really to try to get this done as quickly as possible, but also,
But they need to
They're
come to the
rotating.
regular meetings or just go to the sub?
just the subcommittee meetings. Because if you're a planning and zoning member that's on one of these subcommittees, you would bring the information back that the board would need, as far as this is where we're at, or hey, we're done. Like here's what we got. So.
It'll
Okay.
be interesting.
Well, if we have no further business to discuss, unless there's something else anybody wants to throw out there, I think we can.
Shortest meeting ever.
We can adjourn the
No, there were
meeting.
shorter ones years ago when told people were only building houses.
Shortest one since I've been here.
All right, meeting adjourned.